rising. Up the middle. He's in! Utah leads. Daniels for the win. Caught. It's gone. LSU does it. Mason Taylor.
Hello, everybody. I am Colin Baschnagel here on my show, Bash's CFB show, as you see it up here as the title. And down here, I do a lot of pointing right here. Down here, Bash's CFB show on TikTok. If you want the 1-minute versions of this, I believe I still actually have Penn State to do. So I'm probably going to do that like first thing in the morning as well as this. They don't take that long to do, but they definitely take a long time to study. As you can see, my notes here for the Ole Miss Rebels, and then there's plenty more that's stored up there, which thankfully I have the capacity to store stuff up there because of the fact that I would be going through page after page after page with all the information that I gather with these guys. So with that being said, for those of you on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe, and if you like what we have here, make sure you check out the playlist that I'm popping up right here. Okay, this playlist right here, I'm kind of going out of frame. That's the one you want to pay attention to. It's got all of these previews, predictions. Some of them are better done than others as far as the actual production, as in my own performance and delivery. But with that being said, I do them all the same way. I do the previews. The only difference is I've added this. So you can see the stats rolling in the bottom for returning players that are on the Ole Miss roster this year. All right, we're going to talk about players leaving, starting with who we lost to the pro or just leaving college to the next level. Running back, Zach Evans, I think they're fine at running back. I think we all know that they're fine at running back. 2 wide receivers, big-time losses with Jonathan Mingo and Malik Heath. And then also guard Nick Broker leaving, definitely leaves a little bit of a hole at the guard position there. Edge rusher Tavius Robinson, probably their most disruptive edge rusher or pass rusher last year, front 7 player. I really like Tavius Robinson's play. AJ Finley was a guy that also stood out to me at safety. He played really well. And also Otis Reese, another safety that they had lost. So we're going to talk about transferring out. There's a lot of names here. 2 quarterbacks with Luke Altmaier leaving for Illinois. He might be the starter at Illinois. Kinkead Dent going to UT Martin. I actually think he could potentially play here this year at UT Martin. Running back Kentrell Bullock going to South Alabama. Wide receiver Jalen Robinson. And this was a big stinger because Jalen Robinson last year was their 3rd leading receiver. No, 4. Oh, he was definitely down. Never mind. I thought Jalen Robinson had a lot more. I couldn't remember. He only had 5 receptions. But Jalen Robinson, a kid that a lot of people thought had a lot of potential here with Ole Miss. I can't remember if he had a season in 21 where he did better. Oh, yeah, UCF. That's right. He transferred in from UCF. Duh. I knew that. And he was pretty decent, pretty solid at UCF. Well, last year, not really utilized a ton. He's not coming back. He's going off to TCU. Tight end Casey Kelly gone to Oregon. Again, not really utilized last year. Then you have 3 offensive tackles in Falentha Caswell going to Memphis. Then you have Missouri State picking up Eric Cade and Hamilton Hall going to Arkansas State. Definitely, again, guys who wouldn't crack the rotation. Edge rusher Jaron Willis going to South Carolina. Then defensive tackle Tywon Malone going to Ohio State as well as Jabrin Hawkins going over to Colorado, and then another edge rusher, Brandon Mack, going out to Houston. Linebacker Austin Keys is headed over to Auburn, while defensive back in Davison Igbinosun, who was a pretty solid player for them last year, had 37 tackles, 5 interceptions, 5 passes defended, no interceptions. He's gone to Ohio State. Miles Battle gone to Utah as well. He was also a guy who got some run. He had an interception last year, 38 tackles, 4 passes defended, a forced fumble. And then you have Tysheem Johnson going out to Oregon, another guy who played a decent bit, 78 tackles. So this is what I was talking about when I was talking about Ole Miss actually getting a little bit gutted on defense. Specifically, their secondary got gutted here. And then you have Kendrick Breedlove going over to Colorado. You have Braxton Myers going to Purdue, and as well as Markevius Brown, a corner, going over to Purdue as well. Now, what did they bring in as far as the transfer portal? That's what you should be curious about. Well, they brought in 2 quarterbacks. We know about these quarterbacks. They're both in the battle. I think this is down to Spencer Sanders and Jackson Dart, though I think Walker Howard is a future play. I like the talent that Walker Howard has, but Walker Howard comes in from LSU. Spencer Sanders, longtime starter over at Oklahoma State, comes in as well. 2 wide receivers to try to fill that hole that is left behind by Heath and Mingo, and that is Zachary Franklin from UTSA. Huge pickup, great wide receiver for Frank Harris and what they're going on down there in San Antonio with Jeff Traylor's squad. And then on a bad team, a 900-yard receiver in Trey Harris, I think with a better quarterback and just better skill around him, he's going to thrive a little bit more. Trey Harris will at Louisiana, or from Louisiana Tech over to Ole Miss. Then tight end Braden Prescorn. He's coming in. He's a really good player out of Memphis. So the weapons that they picked up here in the portal, few for sure. They definitely lost a ton in just with the NFL draft. When you talk about Mingo and Heath leaving, that's a combined almost 2,000 yards, about 1,700 yards right there, 1,800 yards between the two. They're really good players, and they're off to the next level. At least you replace them with some pretty good players, and you bring back Jordan Watkins, which we'll talk about in a bit. Then you brought in interior offensive lineman Victor Kern from Washington. We'll talk about that offensive line here when we preview the team. Isaac Ukwu comes in here from James Madison as an edge rusher. Very good player there. Same with Joshua Harris and Stephon Wynn. I think Stephon Wynn is a lot better than they rate him. He's a decent player from Nebraska for sure. 2 linebackers coming in. It's Monty Montgomery from Louisville, and then Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste. I don't think there's any relation to the Javante Jean-Baptiste over at Notre Dame, but UCF transfer Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste coming in. You fill the cornerback spots with that secondary that got gutted with some decent players. John Saunders coming in from Miami of Ohio. I think he's a really good player, one of the best corners in the MAC last year. Then you had Deshaun Gaddy coming in from UNT. Zamari Walton coming in from Georgia Tech, a starter last year at Georgia Tech. Taya Young is coming in from FAU at safety as well to help out that secondary. And then finally, kicker Caden Davis comes in from Texas A&M. All right, breakout player here. We have a good handful. And the first guy I want to watch for is true freshman, all everything, Aiden Williams. I think as a wide receiver, he's got a chance to play a little bit, as well as wide receiver Trey Harris coming in from Louisiana Tech. Linebacker Suntarine Perkins. He's a really good player, 5-star kid. At linebacker, I think he's going to play immediately. And then Zamari Walton, who started over at Georgia Tech, I think you can watch out for him. You can also watch out for John Saunders. One of those 2 guys are definitely going to flash. Over under this year for Ole Miss is 7.5 wins. That's going to be very, very – oh, sorry, I did that out of order. It's fine, though. We'll touch on that in a second. But, 7.5 wins for these guys. Definitely a talented roster, but – with a tough schedule ahead, how's Ole Miss going to do? Let's take a look here at their current roster now. So quarterback position, if I had to favor one way, I'm back and forth on it. I think Spencer Sanders might be the starter. I'm like 55-45 on that. I think it's a good sign if Jackson Dart is a starter. That means he's taking the steps forward because we know what Spencer Sanders is. And if Spencer Sanders is not running the system better than Jackson Dart, then that likely means that Jackson Dart took massive steps. Running back, you are good. You have a great freshman in Kedrick Risano. And Risano is a really, really talented player, but he's behind 2 other talented players. Quinshawn Judkins, we know about him. And I think I said Quinshot. It's Quinshawn. Typo in the bottom line, so I'll correct that. But you also have Ulysses Bentley. Didn't exactly shine the way that us around the lowdown stuff. He didn't shine as much as we expected with lowdown CFB guys. Guy transferring from Ole Miss or Ole Miss SMU to Ole Miss, he was definitely going to be an interesting cat to watch out for, and He really didn't do much, but he's got more of an opportunity this year, I think. Wide receiver, I think you definitely saved it with bringing in Harrison Franklin. Zachary Franklin, I didn't write down as a breakout player because I think a lot of people who follow college football closely enough to watch this video knows who Zachary Franklin is because UTSA was on the radar. Trey Harris, not exactly on the radar over at Louisiana Tech. Jordan Watkins, though, coming back, he was a decent player, over 400 yards of 40 receptions, a possession guy, slot guy. He's going to do a lot for you in the middle there. I think, like I said, Aiden Williams is going to get some playing time along with Jalen Knox and Dayton Wade. Dayton Wade had some good moments last year for sure for this Ole Miss offense. Then on the tight end position, you are very comfortable here with Michael Trigg coming back, but also, again, Caden Prescorn. He's coming in from Memphis, and he's a really good one. A lot of people think he could be a top 10 tight end in the entire country here. The offensive line, not too much concern. I do like Micah Pettis. I don't love him, though, as a right tackle, and he's going to stay on that right side. Left tackle, Jaden Williams. That's just a lot to handle on that left side, but I think at tackle, they'll be okay. Again, guard, you lost a player that was important to you in Nick Broker, but you have good depth there. Victor Kern moving out to tackle is a little bit concerning to me because he's more of an interior build. So that kind of, gives me concern about the fact that the tackle position might not be super duper secure. But again, I like the talent that both Williams and Pettis have, and I like the interior. They have a lot of depth. McIntyre, McGee, James, Warren, Acker, those interior guys are really, really good players. Taking a look at the defensive side of the ball, you bring back Cedric Johnson, who was one of your better edge rushers last year. Now, of course, he's going to have to step up a little bit to fill the void that Tavius Robinson is leaving behind. Isaac Ukwu coming in from James Madison, definitely a sleeper pickup that they had. He's a really good player if you watch his tape from James Madison, and I like their depth on the interior despite the fact that they lost a guy who should be able to take a jump in Taiwan Malone, but you still have J.J. Peegs. You still have Joshua Harris, Stephon Wynn coming in from Nebraska, Jamon Gordon. These guys are good players, experienced players, been in a system at least for a while. Stephon Wynn has been playing big-time football, so I like what they have on the defensive line. I don't love it. The linebacker position, kind of the same thing. Kari Coleman's a great player. Ashanti C. Strunk, also a good player. And then you brought in Jean-Baptiste and Montgomery to kind of help with that depth that was needed. But again, Suntarine Perkins is a guy to watch out for, a true freshman. I think he's going to play immediately alongside maybe Kari Coleman, but the issue is I feel like Kari Coleman and Perkins are similar type of players. So the question is, do they really want to rotate all that much on the linebacker spot? That's what I'm curious about. Now, we're going to talk about the secondary. Before it gets rough, I do want to mention that their best DB from last year, DeAndre Price, he is back. I shouldn't say best DB, but certainly best corner from last year. I think he was slightly better than Davison Igbinosun. Now, Igbinosun was a true freshman, so Igbinosun could definitely develop into a better player. But as of what last year was, getting DeAndre Price to come back, or Price Prince to come back, big deal. He just popped and he flashed. Aside that, though, I mean, you lose two safeties, Otis Reese and AJ Finley. You bring back Ladarius Tennyson. I like him. He was a starting safety, remember, because they would rotate safeties, and Otis Reese did not play more often, if you at least paid attention to it, than I just drew blank. Ladarius Tennyson. Tennyson played a good bit. Otis Reese definitely played a good bit as well. But this Ole Miss secondary definitely helped out that you have Prince and Tennyson back. Isheem Young taking over that starting role. We'll see how he does. Amari Walton coming in from Georgia Tech. He's probably going to be a starter. Gaddy is going to be behind, and also Saunders, but they're certainly going to be asked to play. And Justin Hodges playing in the nickel will be very interesting. I'm not sure how that's going to go. Now, as far as the kicking game goes, kickoff specialist is projected to be that transfer from A&M, Caden Davis, but then you also have Caden Costa coming back for place kicking duties. And then Frazier Mason, he's going to be the punter for sure. No doubt at all about that. So, like I said, 7.5 wins. Let me know what you think Ole Miss is going to do down below. If you think they're going to do better or worse than the 7.5 win mark. And I do apologize. It is kind of late. I tried to rush this video because I should have had it done well before I did. It's 11:30 at night, so I'm having some slip ups. I'm a little tired. A long couple of days, long week, but we're here and we're going to be pushing out this video. Like I said, even if the delivery is not as good, the quality of the information I'm giving you is just as good as any other video that we have. So make sure you just be patient with me, especially on days like this. All right, schedule prediction time. As you see the schedule, and they're going to start off with Mercer in week 1. Easy W against Mercer, no problem there. Now, this one's going to be really tough. Tulane brings back a lot. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Tyjae Spears is gone. A lot of people that are college football fans but did not watch Tulane a lot understand that there's a lot of weapons. They played fantastic, well-coached defense, but they also had some good team speed, some really good team speed. This is not going to be an easy game. But, Ole Miss was able to handle this team. However, Tulane was playing better down the stretch. You play Tulane later in the year, and this Ole Miss team with how they were playing late in the year last year with losing those 4 or 5 of the last 6 games, I think this is going to be a really, really tough game, and Willie Fritz is going to have them up. I'm going to give Ole Miss the benefit of the doubt here. I think their talent wins out. I think their offensive firepower specifically wins out, but I think it's a shootout. I think it's similar to what we saw in the Cotton Bowl between Tulane and USC, but I think the difference is Lane Kiffin's ready and Ole Miss is going to be able to pull it off. Plus, they're going to treat it with importance. So about a 7-point win here, and definitely, I don't know what the over-under is going to be for this game. I would take the over. Georgia Tech, that's going to be a win. I talked about Georgia Tech. I previewed Georgia Tech. I feel like they're going to be a little bit better, but I also feel like it's going to take some time for Brent Key in that system to absolutely take fold and everybody to buy in, plus some confidence with some easier wins. They have a tough start to the schedule. I have Ole Miss beating Georgia Tech without any problem. Their toughest non-conference game, without a shadow of a doubt, is Tulane. Now you have to go to Bryant-Denny to play Alabama. This was a great game last year. Of course, Dallas Turner with the whole entire ripping Jackson Dart's helmet off and then pushing his head into the turf. Dirty player. I'm not going to pick Ole Miss to win, though, because I don't like Dallas Turner as just a dirty player. And how he's able to get away with it, despite the fact that it's obvious to everybody, but yet nobody wants to call him out on it. Nobody wants to call it out at all. But I'm going to take Alabama, better team. Now, if you're going to catch Alabama, they have Texas in week 2. This is a game in Bryant-Denny right here where if Alabama, and this sounds crazy to say, but if Alabama has struggles at the quarterback position, their wide receiver core does not develop the way that I think and Alabama fans hope it does, Ole Miss could easily, they're good enough. Ole Miss could easily catch Alabama sleeping. However, I just think that this defense for Ole Miss is going to struggle a little bit, especially early against the pass. And I think that's going to be a great thing for a young quarterback or a new quarterback in the system and young receivers who are trying to make a jump. And the biggest thing is, even if Alabama can't even score a lot of points, I really don't think this Ole Miss offense, as good as I think they could be, is going to score a ton on this Alabama defense. Then you get LSU at home. I think you turn around, you keep Alabama from beating you twice. I think you pull off the upset, a close game, mainly because you remember how last year's game went. And a lot of these Ole Miss games also started kind of a similar way, where Ole Miss jumps out and then they kind of flatten out. I'm hoping that Lane Kiffin figures out why they would flatten out like that, why they wouldn't end up continuing that momentum throughout the game or kind of putting together a complete game. If they would have put together a complete game against LSU and played better in the second half where they lost that game, then I think, they were the better team for 2.5 quarters in that game in LSU. I think them having to come to Vaught Hemingway, I think that's going to be a tough get for LSU. Arkansas right after LSU, that's going to be really tough. I'm going to give you the win. But that's simply because I still have questions about Arkansas's secondary, Arkansas's pass defense. And I think that, again, whether it's Spencer Sanders, Jackson Dart, Jackson Dart's the starter. He's going to take the development steps needed. He's going to be a better player. Spencer Sanders is the guy. I trust his playmaking as well. So going into the bye, I have Ole Miss at 5-1, which is not bad. Any Rebel fan would take that right now. Coming off the bye, I know this sounds crazy, but I think Auburn's going to be playing better football in late October and through November. I think they have a lot of talent that they brought in the portal. Auburn's not going to be a horrible team. Are they going to be great? No. Are they going to contend to go to the SEC championship? I'd be shocked by that. But they have a lot of talent. They're more talented than Ole Miss. And I think that I could see Ole Miss not taking them as seriously because Auburn, to this point, could have 2 or 3 losses already under their belt. Well, if they have 2 or 3 losses already under their belt, guess what? Ole Miss is going to be like, we got this. It's Auburn, Vandy. This is an easy part of our schedule before we get Texas A&M and Georgia. I think they're going to look ahead a little bit. But then I think that wakes them up and they beat Vandy, who's going to be a better team, who might be able to push Ole Miss a little bit if Ole Miss is not up. But I think losing to Auburn wakes them up, and they get to bowl eligibility with their 6th win of the year. Before losing to Texas A&M at home, I do think that this is going to be a back-and-forth game, a tough game, a lot like it was last year. I mean, last year, Texas A&M did have the ball with a chance to win, and I feel like they played late in the season kind of like this. Texas A&M was playing better football at the end of the year. They were starting to figure some stuff out, and I partly think that's because Jimbo was starting to figure out his old ways weren't working. They looked a little bit more modernized on offense, and if they're able to continue to evolve like that and Jimbo can quit being so stubborn, they have the talent to just be a walking 8-4 at the very least and beat a couple of teams in this conference. But certainly their ceiling is very high, as in win the division high, with how much talent they have. And I'm not just talking about that because of a recruiting class, just one recruiting class. They've had this talent for a while. There's a reason why the COVID year they went 9-1, right? The reason why is because Texas A&M can compete with most, if not everybody, based on talent alone. Moving on to at Georgia, I think they give Georgia a tough game in Sanford. I think the biggest selling point I have is the fact that it is in Sanford. I think that you could see Kamari Lassiter and Dalen Everett definitely struggle to defend these wide receivers. Like I said, I'm pretty high on these wide receivers. And by this time, Aiden Williams in mid-November is not going to be fully a freshman. I think he's going to start to understand the college football part about it. The high recruit at wide receiver, plus Trey Harris adjusted to SEC football. Zachary Franklin adjusted to SEC football. Jordan Watkins, been there, done that. They got depth there. They have a couple of tight ends that can kill you. I think that Georgia's corners and Dalen Everett and Kamari Lassiter, that this is going to be a massive test. And this is a massive test that they need prior to playing against Tennessee. So I'm going to have Georgia winning this game, but I think that Ole Miss is going to give them a game, and I think Ole Miss is going to give them good material to finish this run off to try to get that three-peat. So I think this will be a great game for Georgia, and I think this is going to be a good game even for Ole Miss, despite the fact that they lose their 4th game and they're sitting at 6-4 before beating ULM. I hope the Warhawks figure it out, but they're just not a good program at all. And then at Mississippi State, I was back and forth on this game. I already predicted Mississippi State. I ended up going with Ole Miss just because I think they're a better team. But having to go into Davis-Wade Stadium on Thanksgiving in a short week, granted, it's a short week as well for Mississippi State. I'm very aware of that. But this is not going to be easy. I think this is going to be a really close game. And you can see here when I give Ole Miss this 8-4 record, 4-4 in conference, I'm giving them close wins and I'm giving them close losses. I mean, if you look at games like LSU, Arkansas, Mississippi State, you could easily flip those results, but you could also easily flip the Auburn, Texas A&M results as well. And you can also flip that Tulane result if you want. Tulane's a good team, and I was just talking about them. I rewatched the Cotton Bowl earlier today, or at least the highlights of it, that is. And, man, they have a lot of team speed. They have a lot more coming back than we realize. This Tulane team is going to be dangerous. That's going to be the out-of-conference game that Ole Miss should be highlighting here in the offseason. Willie Fritz's offenses are really confusing, and it's ever evolving too. It's always changing based on his personnel. It's completely different now than it was back in 2019 and 2020. So with that being said, like I said, Ole Miss 8-4, 4-4 in conference play. Let me know what you think down below. If you go back to this over/under win total at 7.5, do not touch. This is such an unknown because they have a lot of talent. I think this Ole Miss team definitely has a high ceiling. Like they could get 10 wins again this year. Pardon me, excuse me. But I don't see that happening. So thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. The Ole Miss Rebels preview is out of the way. We'll see you guys for the next video. It's going to be the Baylor Bears. Have a good one.